Hello, this is William Hempill and welcoming you today. Today, we want to continue with our series, The Freedom of Forgiveness. And today, specifically, we want to talk about vengeance versus justice. When pain wants payback. So, want to start. For those of you who don't know about me, I was a huge comic book fan growing up. I had a whole area, as a matter of fact, filled with comics, stacked up in various places when I was a kid. I enjoyed reading my comic books. Me and my friends, that would be one of the things we'd do. We'd gather in that little room area. We'd eat our honey buns, drink our chocolate milk or our Funyuns and our and our orange sodas, and we would read comic books. And one of my favorite comics was Spider-Man. I loved Spider-Man comics. And so one of the stories that struck me back was when Peter Parker, who became Spider-Man, got his new powers. He was bitten by a bug and he had gotten his new powers. And so he was strong. He was tired of being powerless, tired of being overlooked. And these powers gave him this ability. Well, one of the things that happened when he got this power is a thief ran right past him, and Peter let him go because he said, you know what? That's not my problem that this thief ran past me. Later on, his Uncle Ben, the man who raised him, loved him, and gave him values, was murdered. The police go to track down this killer, but Peter also decides, I'm going to go after him. And he is angry and burning with rage. Peter, of course, tracks down this person and he was going to punish him. But when he finally sees the burglar's face, he's shocked. He's shocked because it's the same person that he refused to stop when they were committing a crime. And it was in that moment that Peter realized that vengeance didn't restore what he had lost. It really multiplied his pain with guilt. Yes, he did catch the guy, but he still missed his Uncle Ben and he still had pain in his heart. And it was in that moment that he learned that classic phrase that Uncle Ben would say to him: with great power comes great responsibility. We've been reading from the scriptures, Matthew chapter 18, verses 21 through 27, talking about forgiveness. And so when we looked at this passage in the past several weeks, we saw that Jesus said there was a servant that was forgiven of a huge debt. But this servant, who was forgiven millions of dollars in today's money, found someone who owed him money. He grabbed that person by the throat and demanded immediate payback. And because he didn't get immediate payback, he threw that person in a debtor's prison. Vengeance in action is another way of looking at that. This other servant owed the servant who had been forgiven millions of dollars probably a few $1,000s. It wasn't much in comparison. He asked for the money. He demanded the money. The other servant asked for mercy and grace so he could pay him back. But instead, he operated in vengeance, and it felt powerful to him, I imagine. I threw that person in the prison who owed me $1,000. The truth is, though, that act of vengeance destroyed him and harmed the other person at the same time. So we want to talk for a couple minutes about some main points from this. The first one is this: vengeance is pain in search of a target. When we hurt, we often want to hurt somebody else too, because we think that hurting that person is going to bring healing to our hearts. And so I don't know if you've heard statements like this. Hmm, you do that to me, I'm gonna teach you. I'm gonna make sure you never do that again. I've heard that one a few times. Oh yeah, just wait. We're gonna get you. It's pain searching for a target. And it is a natural emotional response, but the truth is, just because it's natural doesn't mean it's healthy. I talk about it a lot that anger is a secondary emotion because we are responding to some pain that's underneath. Anger can be both empowering and destructive. And when anger turns to vengeance, that's when it gets destructive. So the first thing is that vengeance is pain searching for a target. The second thing is vengeance often punishes the wrong person. Like Peter Parker, we take our pain out on whoever's closest, not necessarily who caused it. Have you ever heard the statement, hurting people hurt people? A lot of times when we've been hurt or wounded or traumatized in life, we often start acting out of that pain and acting out of that hurt. And we often take out that pain on those who are closest to us. It's sometimes why it gets tough in marriage sometimes because we may be hurt by our childhood wounds, or we may be hurt by someone who betrayed us. And unfortunately, our spouses and maybe our children are the people closest to us. And so sometimes they get the brunt of that pain unfairly. Vengeance punishes the wrong person because the hurt and the pain causes collateral damage. In other words, out of that vengeance and pain, collateral damage is caused to all people. I believe if we look at that scriptural passage, he put the servant who was owed $1,000, put the man who owed him in the debtor's prison and ordered his wife and children sold. That was collateral damage. That was damage out of vengeance. Vengeance punishes the wrong person. It often leads to misplaced anger. And the truth is, we often recreate the harm that we've experienced. So maybe in your life, for example, you felt controlled by growing up in an authoritarian parent household. Out of your pain, sometimes you try to control people. That's not healthy. That's a sign that we need healing. But what happens, we act out of that wound, and so we start punishing the wrong people because vengeance punishes the wrong person. Point three, this goes to what we were just talking about. Vengeance makes me become what I hate. Vengeance makes me become what I hate. The forgiven servant became an oppressor. He had received mercy when he could have received judgment, harsh judgment initially. But instead of receiving that out of his own wounding, he became an oppressor. Many times out of that hurt, we take vengeance on others and we become what we hate or what has hurt us previously. I want us to think about it. That's why forgiveness is so important. And that's why we need healing, because vengeance can easily make us become what we hate. We can be oppressed on one hand and turn into an oppressor on the other hand if we are not careful. Point number four, justice restores and vengeance destroys. Vengeance asks the question, Who is going to pay for this? And then it begins to look and see how we can get payback. And often that payback out of pain is often can be higher than the cost, but then it doesn't even bring healing. So even if we got quote unquote payback, it still doesn't heal the pain in our heart. Justice asks, what heals? What can bring about restoration? What can bring about safety for all involved? Accountability is righteousness, and we need to be held accountable for our actions when we do harm to people. Because, frankly, with accountability, sometimes that keeps us from doing harm to people. There are some of us who might go break into houses and steal stuff if there wasn't laws that kept people from doing that. There are some of us out of our pain who might commit violence on others if there weren't laws that kept that from happening. Vengeance asks who pays, justice asks what heals. I like to say appropriate justice does come out of forgiveness because we say, how can we fix the situation and bring restoration instead of how can we do punitive damage to the other person? God's justice corrects without corrupting. And point five is this. This one is not always easy. Forgiveness is handing the sword back to God. Forgiveness doesn't let people off the hook. It allows God to be in ultimate judgment. Why is that important? Because God often knows things that we don't know. God often understands things that we don't understand. And the truth is we aren't giving up justice when we forgive. We're giving up hatred. I said this, I believe John Lewis said this, hatred is too big a burden to bear. If you spend your life hating somebody just because, you'll often make decisions that harm yourself out of hatred. I'm going to rephrase that again. If we spend our lives hating other people, we'll often make decisions that harm ourselves because they're based out of hatred instead of healing. So forgiveness protects and heals the heart and helps us to deal with the wound. Vengeance feels powerful, but forgiveness brings actual power back. So, a reflection question for us today as we close. Where are you tempted to put your hands around somebody's throat, symbolically, with your words, or with your silence, or with your bitterness? Where are you tempted to harm somebody out of your pain? Here's the thing we should pray. Lord, help me to release vengeance so I can receive healing. As we reflect, write down one place where pain is pushing you toward payback and ask the Lord to help you with the pain. If you enjoyed this video, please share, comment below. Justice or revenge, what's your battle right now? Um, please add some other comments as you see fit. If this is helping you move toward healing and forgiveness and love, please subscribe to the channel and like the video and share it with somebody else who wants to learn more about forgiveness. You'll see the links also in the description for my book, The Confidence Walk, helping us to silence our inner critics so that we can walk in complete and consistent confidence. You can purchase a copy by clicking on the link in the video. And also, if you'd like to contact me for speaking on topics of forgiveness, spiritual trauma, healing, confidence, or marriage, please look at the link below, www.williamhemphill2nd.com, or email my admin at admin1@faithandfamilyempowerment.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. And as we close, remember to love God, love people, and love ourselves. Take care.